So this paper, we're going to focus on a question: if the competitive markets are efficient under moral hazard or in general private information problem. So here in this talk, I'm going to focus mostly on moral hazard, partly because hopefully it's the most standard private information that we would discuss, and everybody kind of, we learn in the textbook by now. But also, we're gonna, if I have time, I'm gonna show you that this applies to what we call unobserved states, or usually is more popular nowadays. You can call it liquidity shock economy. So it's gonna be an economy that you have liquidity shock, which is private, and we're gonna see what happened. In particular, what we're gonna add to the problem is we're gonna allow agents to retrade. This is not new. The problem is there for many years, maybe 30 years by now. And many people contribute to that. But what the main contribution for us is going to be, we're going to try to show that, well, there's a way that the market can solve this problem. Maybe not current market, but still, there's still market institution that can deal with this problem. So that's our main point of the paper. Okay, but of course, before I have to convince you that there's a problem first, and then we will tell you what how our solution look like. Okay, and I'm gonna go in detail later. So just to tell you that what's in the big picture, what is this about? This is applied mechanism design in general equilibrium. The main contributor is clearly Prescott and Townsend, 1984, two papers. That's one of the most beautiful paper after the blue to me. So that's a very nice paper that deal with this kind of problem, but without this thing. Okay, and they show that without retrading Prescott-Townsend equilibrium, I call Prescott-Townsend equilibrium just to make it clear that this is about this one. The competitive market in that environment is constrained efficient. Okay, but the problem is that may not be true when you have retrading. So I'm going to be more precise later what retrading means, but just for now, you can imagine retrading is like, you sign a contract, I give you compensation according to the contract, and then you can go out to Walmart or something and trade your good or whatever. Okay, and that had been shown that could create externality. I think it's, for example, Greenwald's Stiglitz talk about that and propose that maybe we need a tax or a tax system to solve that problem. Recently, Acemoglu and Simsek also revisit the problem and show that in general it's also true that there's going to be externality, and we will discuss that in detail. Okay, and that's the idea. There's externality if you allow retrading. So here's why there's externality. So here what we're going to show first is I'm going to try to convince you that Prescott-Townsend equilibrium first is still efficient. So this is kind of still a positive point if we assume some form of preferences. Okay, which we're going to call it partially separable preferences. That's we take it from Acemoglu and Simsek. They show the same results. Okay, but then we're going to show with more general preferences. If the preferences are not partially separable, then the interaction between private information are either moral hazard or liquidity shock going to interact with the fact that agent can retrade. That's going to create externality. Okay, and that externality is going to make markets inefficient. So precisely, this is kind of a more technical term why there's externality, because once you allow people to retrade, the consumption possibility set, or the set that people can choose from when they want to consume or they want to buy something, going to depend on all collective action of all agents. So everyone's going to choose something, right? And whatever they choose is going to turn out to give them output and consumption tomorrow. And that consumption and output tomorrow determine what the price tomorrow would be. For example, if everybody is lazy, the good tomorrow would be less, so the price may be low. When on the other hand, if everybody work hard, the price would be high tomorrow. So that price is going to come into how much they can choose consumption, okay, through the contracts. And that's going to, but that possibility set depend on all other people action, which is different from the usual general equilibrium model that consumption possibility set, usually we define by ourselves. So my consumption possibility set doesn't depend on other people. I don't care what other people does. Okay? I just know what I can choose from. Then my budget set tell me what I can choose. Okay? But here it's not true. Because what I can choose from depend on other people's action. That's why this create externality. Because what I can do depend on what other people do. Even in this sense. Okay? It's not, well, we know even in a complete world, what I can do at the optimal depend on what other people do. But when I think about it, when I try to choose this thing, I don't care, right? I can decide what I can do regardless of what other people do. Just look at my budget set, then I decide what the best for me. Okay, but this is not gonna be true. And there are tons of papers about this. Okay, and okay, just want to point out two papers. This one I already said. Then there's another paper by Jacqueline. Okay, this paper is important for banking and liquidity because they show that Diamond-Dybvig liquidity bank run model is not sustainable under this retrading. Okay, that's a very important paper, and that make kind of show the problem of Diamond-Dybvig idea. So we're gonna deal with that. Actually, we deal with that in the paper. If I have time, I show you how we formulate that problem. I'm not going to go in detail with that later, but it's very important. And I mentioned that because nowadays people have in mind this kind of liquidity problem all the time, right? Everybody talk about that on CNN or wherever. Sometimes they may say something incorrect, but